Picture this: tanks rolling down a city boulevard, missiles pointed skyward, soldiers marching in perfect formation. The ground shakes. The air vibrates with raw military might. This is power. Or at least, that's what we've been taught to believe. Now, shift your attention to another scene playing out simultaneously across the globe. Millions of teenagers in their bedrooms, from Kansas to Kazakhstan, perfectly mimicking the dance moves to the latest BTS hit. They're learning Korean phrases, trying Korean snacks, and dreaming of visiting Seoul. In 2024, nearly 90% of international tourists visiting South Korea cited K-pop and Korean dramas as their primary motivation. The Hallyu Korean cultural wave generated billions in revenue, not through force or coercion, but through pure attraction. Meanwhile, BTS concert performances created economic ripple effects ranging from $550 million to $989 million for a single show. This is the story of soft power, the ability to shape preferences through appeal and attraction rather than coercion. It's a force so subtle that we often don't realize its influence until we find ourselves humming foreign songs, craving international cuisines, or adopting global trends without a second thought. Think about your own daily choices. That Netflix series from Spain you can't stop watching, the Japanese anime that shaped your childhood, or the American social media platforms that connect you to the world. Each of these represents a form of power more persuasive than any military parade. Today, we're going to journey through the invisible architecture of influence that shapes our modern world. We'll uncover how nations wage battles, not with bullets, but with pop culture, educational exchanges, and viral videos. Because in today's interconnected world, the most powerful forces aren't always the ones you can see. Sometimes, they're the ones you don't even realize are there. For centuries, we've measured power in megatons and missiles, in carrier groups and combat divisions. Walk into any high school history class, and you'll likely find students learning about the great powers through the lens of military might, how many tanks they had, the size of their armies, the reach of their navies. I remember being that student, absolutely fascinated by aircraft carriers. These floating cities of steel, each one carrying more firepower than most nations' entire air forces, seemed like the ultimate symbol of power. After all, when CNN shows footage of international crises, what do they typically show? An aircraft carrier battle group steaming toward troubled waters. This fixation on hard power runs deep in international relations theory. According to research published in International Security Journal, traditional theories of power focused almost exclusively on material capabilities, military forces, economic output, and territorial size. The thinking was straightforward. The nation with the biggest stick wins. But here's where things get interesting. In 2024, the United States maintained the world's largest military budget at over $800 billion. Its 11 aircraft carrier groups could project force anywhere on Earth. Yet something curious was happening. American movies were influencing more people than American missiles ever could. Consider this paradox. During the same period when China was building its military to challenge American dominance in the Pacific, Chinese parents were sending their children to American universities in record numbers. The annual number of Chinese students in U.S. universities reached over 277,000 in 2024, despite growing tensions between the two nations. This reveals the fundamental misconception about power in our modern world. While nations continue to invest heavily in military capabilities, the real battle for influence is being fought in classrooms, on streaming platforms, and through social media feeds. Think about the last time you made a decision about a foreign country. Was it based on the size of their military, or was it influenced by their movies you've watched, their music you've listened to, or their food you've tasted? For most of us, our views of other nations are shaped more by their cultural exports than their military parades. The limitation of traditional power became starkly clear during recent global events. Despite having the world's most powerful military, nations found that force alone couldn't win hearts and minds. You can't bomb people into liking your values. You can't missile strike your way to cultural relevance. As Joseph Nye, who coined the term soft power, observed, the ability to attract and persuade is becoming more important than the ability to coerce and compel. This isn't just academic theory. It's playing out in real time across our interconnected world. The first hint that traditional views of power were incomplete came from an unlikely source: the silver screen. In the aftermath of World War II, while America was building its nuclear arsenal, something far more subtle but equally transformative was happening in theaters across the globe. Hollywood wasn't just entertaining audiences, it was reshaping their dreams. From Tokyo to Tehran, people weren't just watching American movies. They were absorbing American values, lifestyle aspirations, and cultural norms. The American dream spread not through military occupation or economic pressure, but through stories that resonated with universal human desires. Consider this remarkable statistic from 2024. American films accounted for roughly 30 to 35% of global box office revenue. This wasn't achieved through force or coercion. People freely chose to watch these movies, voluntarily absorbing the values and worldviews embedded within them. When researchers studied the impact of American media on foreign audiences, they found that exposure to American content influenced everything from fashion choices to democratic aspirations. Young people in authoritarian countries weren't dreaming of American military protection. They were dreaming of American-style freedom, individualism, and opportunity. The Marvel Cinematic Universe offers a perfect modern example of this dynamic. These superhero films aren't just action spectacles. They're vehicles for American values like individualism, democracy, and the power of personal choice. In 2024, Marvel films continued to dominate global box office receipts, not because anyone was forced to watch them, but because their themes resonated across cultural boundaries. But there's a crucial caveat. Cultural influence only works when it's freely chosen. When nations attempt to force their culture on others, it often backfires spectacularly. During the Cold War, Soviet attempts to mandate Russian culture in Eastern Europe created resistance, rather than acceptance. Japan understood this principle perfectly. Instead of trying to force its culture on the world, it let its anime, manga, and video games speak for themselves. The result? In 2024, Japan's cultural exports reached approximately $35.4 billion, with millions of fans worldwide voluntarily embracing Japanese pop culture. This reveals a fundamental truth about soft power. Its strength lies in its voluntary nature. When people choose to embrace another culture's products, values, or ideas, the influence runs deeper than any forced compliance could achieve. It's the difference between being pushed into a pool and choosing to dive in. The end result might look similar, but the experience and lasting impact are worlds apart. The success of South Korean cultural exports offers another striking example. K-pop group BTS didn't need government mandates or economic pressure to attract fans. They did it through pure cultural appeal. Their concerts in 2024 generated economic ripple effects of up to $989 million per performance, demonstrating how cultural influence can translate into real economic power. This pattern reveals something profound about power in the modern world. The most effective way to influence people isn't to force them to change, but to make them want to change. Cultural influence, when done right, doesn't feel like influence at all. It feels like choice. Here's where things get personal. Take a moment to look around your room, check your phone, or think about what you ate today. Chances are, you're surrounded by soft power without even realizing it. That playlist you're streaming? In 2024, Korean dramas accumulated over 3.3 billion streaming hours globally. The beauty products on your shelf? South Korean beauty standards have so profoundly influenced global cosmetics that even Western brands now advertise glass skin and K-beauty inspired products. The apps on your phone? TikTok, with its 1.5 billion monthly active users in 2024, has made Chinese-developed software a daily part of life for users across 150 countries. This is soft power in its most effective form, so seamlessly integrated into our daily lives that we barely notice its influence. Let's take K-pop as a case study. What started as a local music scene has transformed into a global cultural phenomenon that reshapes everything from fashion to facial features. When BTS performs, they're not just entertaining, they're subtly influencing how millions of young people worldwide define beauty, success, and coolness. Their concerts in 2024 generated economic ripple effects of up to $989 million per performance. But the real power lies in how they've changed what people aspire to look like and be like. This is fundamentally different from traditional power. No one forced teenagers in Brazil or Bangladesh to learn Korean phrases or adopt Korean skincare routines. They chose to. That's the genius of soft power. It works through attraction rather than coercion. Think about your own life. What foreign influences have shaped your tastes and preferences? Maybe you practice yoga, India, enjoy sushi, Japan, or can't start your day without an espresso, Italy. Each of these represents a strand in the complex web of global cultural influence. The numbers tell a fascinating story. In 2024, over 54% of internet users in English-speaking countries reported regularly watching non-English content, up from 43% in 2020. This wasn't because of any mandate or requirement. People simply chose to expand their cultural horizons. Consider the path of influence. A teenager in Minnesota watches a Korean drama on Netflix. She becomes interested in Korean skincare routines. She starts learning Korean phrases. She tries Korean food. Soon, she's influencing her friends' choices. Multiply this pattern by millions, and you begin to see how soft power reshapes societies from the ground up. This is happening everywhere, all the time. Japanese anime influences Western animation styles. European cafe culture shapes American coffee shops. Bollywood dance moves appear in Western pop videos. It's a constant flow of cultural exchange, with each successful element spreading not through force, but through genuine appeal. The brilliance of soft power lies in its subtlety. Unlike a military parade or economic sanctions, cultural influence doesn't feel like power at all. It feels like choice, like discovery, like enrichment. And that's precisely why it works so effectively. When a nation's culture becomes aspirational, when people want to eat its food, speak its language, visit its cities, study at its universities, it has achieved something far more valuable than military dominance. It has won hearts and minds without firing a single shot. If soft power was a game changer in the 20th century, social media has turned it into a superpower in the 21st. The digital revolution hasn't just accelerated cultural exchange. It's fundamentally transformed how influence spreads across borders. Consider TikTok, arguably the most powerful tool of cultural influence ever created. In 2024, this Chinese-developed platform boasted 1.5 billion monthly active users, with approximately 1 billion unique monthly visits. But here's the fascinating part. Users weren't just passively consuming content, they were actively participating in cross-cultural exchange. According to platform data, over 51% of TikTok users came from the Asia-Pacific, Middle East, and Africa regions, creating a truly global cultural melting pot. The speed and scale of this influence is unprecedented in human history. A dance trend that starts in a bedroom in Seoul can be replicated by millions of teenagers across the globe within hours. A cooking technique shared from a kitchen in Lagos can influence dinner tables from London to Los Angeles by sunset. These digital platforms aren't just transmitting culture, they're creating new hybrid forms of it. When a British teen remixes a K-pop song with African beats, adds an American dance move, and shares it with followers in Brazil, what we're witnessing is soft power evolving in real time. Take the phenomenon of political memes. What might seem like simple jokes actually shape how millions of people understand complex global issues. During international crises, memes often spread faster than official statements, framing narratives and influencing public opinion before traditional media can even react. The numbers tell a compelling story. In 2024, users spent an average of 95 minutes per day on TikTok alone. That's more time than many people spend reading newspapers, watching traditional news, or engaging with any other single source of information. Digital platforms have also democratized cultural influence. Before social media, cultural export was largely controlled by governments and large corporations. Now, an individual creator can reach millions across borders, spreading their culture's influence without any official backing. This has created what scholars call micro-soft power, cultural influence wielded not by nations, but by individuals and small communities. The same platforms that enable unprecedented cultural exchange also become battlegrounds for influence. Nations now wage attention wars, competing to shape global narratives through trending topics and viral content. The BBC World Service, for instance, reached a global audience of 320 million people in 2024, with significant growth in digital engagement across its 42 language services. When Korean pop culture can influence beauty standards globally, when Japanese anime can shape storytelling worldwide, when Chinese social media apps can influence how billions communicate, we're witnessing soft power operating at a scale and speed that would have been unimaginable just a generation ago. The result is a world where cultural influence flows not just from nation to nation, but from screen to screen, user to user, moment to moment. In this digital age, soft power isn't just about cultural products anymore. It's about cultural participation, where every share, like, and comment becomes part of a global conversation that shapes how we think, what we value, and who we aspire to be. Nations have begun to treat soft power not just as a byproduct of cultural success, but as a deliberate strategic asset. This shift represents one of the most fascinating developments in modern international relations. Let's start with a revealing statistic. In 2024, China had approximately 525 Confucius Institutes operating worldwide. These aren't just language schools. They're strategic instruments of cultural diplomacy designed to promote Chinese language and culture globally. But here's where it gets interesting. When America's military presence in a region creates resistance, China's cultural initiatives often generate voluntary engagement. While Japan's cultural exports reached approximately $35.4 billion in 2024 through anime, manga, and games, South Korea's content industry generated $13.24 billion through K-pop, K-dramas, and beauty products. Both nations achieved this influence not through government mandates, but by creating cultural products so appealing that people actively sought them out. France maintains its influence through high culture and cuisine, with 89.4 million international visitors in 2024, many drawn by its cultural heritage. The United States leverages its entertainment industry, with American films accounting for 30 to 35% of global box office revenue in 2024. Meanwhile, China combines traditional cultural promotion with modern digital influence through platforms like TikTok, reaching 1.5 billion monthly active users globally. But soft power has its limits. Take international education. While the United States hosted over 1.1 million international students in 2024, with Indian students, 331,602, surpassing Chinese students, 277,398, for the first time in years, this influence doesn't automatically translate into diplomatic advantage. Cultural familiarity doesn't always overcome competing national interests. The BBC World Service offers another instructive example. Despite reaching 320 million people globally in 2024 across 42 languages, Britain's cultural influence doesn't always align with its diplomatic objectives. As one diplomat noted, "You can't eat at French restaurants, watch American movies, and drive a German car, then expect people to automatically support your foreign policy." This reveals a crucial insight. Soft power works best when it's authentic rather than manufactured. Japan and South Korea succeeded not because their governments mandated cultural export, but because they created environments where creative industries could flourish naturally. Their cultural products spread globally because they genuinely resonated with audiences, not because of strategic planning. China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, demonstrates both the potential and limitations of strategic soft power. While China invests heavily in infrastructure and cultural exchange programs, its influence efforts sometimes create resistance precisely because they're perceived as strategic rather than organic. The most successful soft power strategies share a common thread. They create platforms for cultural exchange rather than trying to control the message. Consider how the Korean wave, Hallyu, succeeded. The government supported the creative industries but didn't dictate content. This strategic dimension of soft power reveals a paradox. The more obviously you try to wield it, the less effective it becomes. The nations that succeed are often those that focus on creating genuine cultural value rather than explicit influence campaigns. It's the difference between hosting a party everyone wants to attend and forcing people to come to your event. Perhaps the most profound truth about power in our modern world is that the most effective forms often go unnoticed. While military parades showcase strength and economic sanctions demonstrate might, it's the quiet influence of culture, values, and ideas that often creates the most lasting change. This brings us to a fascinating paradox. The moment you try to weaponize soft power, you risk destroying its effectiveness. The Korean wave didn't conquer global culture through force. It succeeded by creating something so genuinely appealing that people couldn't resist it. TikTok didn't become a global phenomenon because of government mandates. It spread because users found it irresistibly engaging. In 2024, when over 54% of English-speaking internet users regularly consumed content from other cultures, they weren't following orders or responding to pressure. This is the ultimate lesson about power in our interconnected age. True influence doesn't announce itself with trumpet blasts or military displays. It spreads through Netflix queues and Spotify playlists, through viral videos and fashion trends, through the countless small choices we make every day, without realizing we're being influenced at all. To test your understanding of these concepts, consider the following questions.